All right, welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. Hello, everybody watching on YouTube live now, and hello to you who is watching the recording of this live lecture. Welcome in. As you can see on the screen, we are going to be talking about story symbols, story items, story objects. I'm going to be discussing, let's see here. I'm going to be discussing exposition today. I'm going to be discussing setups and payoffs. I'm going to be discussing important story objects and important story symbols. Hello, Adam Redfire in the chat. Hello, Stevenson. S. Zaman, what is up with you, my friend? Things are good on my end. Good to see you guys funneling into the stream here. Hopefully everything is up and running and good to go as usual. Hello, Ben Rowbottom. Good to see you in here. Going to give it just a moment to let some people funnel in before we get fully rolling here. So give you all a second to settle in. Hello, Paramveer. Hello, Annie. Good to see you all. I'm going to be keeping this one pretty simple today. This is something that, these lectures that I've been doing are kind of me. I'm developing this new course material that I'm going to be putting out on YouTube when the time is right. But in the meantime, I'm presenting some of what I am doing as these live lectures so that you guys don't feel as though I am totally going off of YouTube as I work with screenwriters and I work on this course material. I want to make sure I'm hopping in and saying hello to you all. Hello, Shrimp Pasta. All right. Helamhea, bro, you butchered my name horribly. Well, get a cooler name. I don't know what to tell you. All right, let's go ahead and hop in here today. It looks like we got some people in. It is 4:01 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello, 1.0. All right, so if you all can direct your attention to the screen here, I want to talk about important story objects to begin. So we have talked a lot about the philosophies, the beliefs behind a story. We've talked a lot about characters and character web in some of the recent live lectures. If you watch last week's live lecture, you will see me talking about character web expressed in 3 different ways, which is how I see it, which connects to the story trinity of 3 in 1, which I discussed, I believe it was 2 weeks ago. So we've talked about beliefs, we've talked about characters, we've talked somewhat about concept and setting, and what I want to talk about now is about the objects and symbols that you are actually using in scenes to express story information and express symbolism, right? Express sort of an important character relationship or representative or story symbols and story objects can be representative of other characters. Mr. Reactive, I do have Discord. It is linked below this live right now. And hello, Fogarty. All right. Thank you, Fogarty, for letting him know. Okay, I'm going to not focus on chat too much. I'm going to focus on this stuff. So first, I just want to go to this Screen Rant article just to remind ourselves about some of the interesting and memorable story objects in some popular movies. The One Ring is a big one that I have discussed multiple times on this YouTube channel. This is an extremely important story symbol. It is the reason for the entire plot of The Lord of the Rings. It is the entire plot can be simply distilled down to bringing the ring from point A to point B, right? Bringing the ring from the Shire to Mordor. And there's obviously a lot that goes into that, but the fact that the plot and what we are doing is so simple and clear is part of the reason the story resonates so deeply with people. Mjolnir is another great example. We have Thor's hammer that Captain America picks up in one of the Avengers films. We see Mjolnir through many of the Marvel films, and it has certain rules attached to it, certain ideas attached to it, right? Whoever is worthy is able to pick it up. And so it's interesting that they have this image as the first image in Screen Rant's website here talking about Mjolnir, because they are expressing just visually here, right, an important story rule that is connected to Mjolnir, which is the fact that only those who are worthy can lift it. And this single shot is showing that Captain America is worthy enough to lift the hammer, which is again why I'm talking about this as story symbols, right? Story objects like Mjolnir, they are attached to certain beliefs and rules, right? It's like whoever only, whoops, I cannot type today. Only those who are worthy can lift the hammer. And so now you have an object, a weapon, or a builder's tool, depending on how you want to think about it, now connected to a story rule, which then connects that important object to characters and differences and changes in character relationships. This being, the Mjolnir being picked up by Captain America is showing a character trait of Captain America through symbolically, right? We are showing Captain America's worthiness, or we are showing his good character by the fact that he can lift this object. So this object is now symbolic of good character. Vincent Weasley says, martini shaken, not stirred. That is a good example. James Bond has a way of ordering his martini that is connected to him and symbolic of who he is. Mjolnir can also symbolize Thor. Anytime we see Thor's hammer, it makes us think of Thor. In the same way, anytime we see the One Ring, who is also there? Sauron is also there because he is connected to the One Ring. And so we can use this object as a symbol for a character, right? So when you create a character like Thor, then you give that character an important object that has its own meaningful rules attached to it, like, for example, only those who are worthy can lift it. Well, now we have an important story object, and we can symbolize a character based on the presence of that object, right? So in a way, if we look at this image here, this is Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, on top of Loki, keeping Loki crushed against the floor, right? You could also say this image is symbolizing Thor stopping Loki, right? Because this is Thor's hammer. It is associated with him so strongly, and then becomes that important story symbol that we are using to express Thor. Which is why this scene is super fun, right? When Captain America first lifts the hammer just a little bit. Oh, this is going to be some stupid thing, so I'm not going to do that. But the idea is when Captain America lifts the hammer just a little bit, that is a setup for this moment later on in another film. So you have this setup of, hey, he might actually be worthy because he moves the hammer just a little bit. Yeah, this is just a big nothing. He moves the hammer just a little bit, and then payoff in this final battle, he actually lifts the hammer, and we see a change in that story symbol, right? Or we see a change around that story symbol, right? First, we set up the idea that, hey, maybe Captain America can lift it. Then we pay off that idea by actually showing the hammer go to him, right? It actually flies into his hand, and now he's holding the hammer. Another one is Hannibal Lecter's mask. Another big, memorable story symbol. We've got the neuralizer in Men in Black. The golden ticket in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. You see that these are important objects that whole scenes are built around, right? So with this example here that we're seeing, right, the whole family, we have this blocking, right? Think about this as a single movie shot, right? We've got these we have one character on this side and then two characters on the left side, and then our main character looking at the golden ticket, and they're all centered around this important object in the center of frame, right? And so you want to think about, what are these important objects that I build for my story? Because this little gold thing in the middle of the room, right, doesn't actually cost that much money to make. When you're thinking about your story in the sense of, okay, what important objects, what important items are actually in the physical rooms in my story that I'm pointing a camera at, now I don't need to think so much about, oh, how much is the budget going to be? How much is this going to cost from this big picture perspective? I just need to be super specific about what it is I'm putting on the screen, right? You can get some talented person that you know to create a golden ticket, or you can make one, right? And so then now you create so much production value. Obviously, Willy Wonka has massive sets and it's a high budget movie in other ways, but the idea is that you could create a golden ticket, a sort of trademark idea, let's say for your short film, that is now iconic as a part of your short. So if you have scenes that are in people's homes or in other locations that you have, and then you make interesting specific objects for that film, well, now you are adding so much depth to that story idea. Like even this, right? Wilson is an example of a super iconic story symbol, and he's like a character in the story. And it's so simple as a volleyball with this bloody hand mark on it, right? In the shape of a face. Not expensive to make at all, but it's all about how well are you able to create a story object that is unique and interesting for that story that you are creating, right? Because so many times I see characters, I see shorts and I see features where writers are just writing characters standing in rooms. And sometimes they are standing in rooms expressing a argument or a debate about an important choice, which I talk about a lot as important, right? Scenes are about decisions, choices, and dialogue is a debate about a choice. But your story shouldn't just be characters speaking in rooms over and over and over and over again. We need some sort of interesting or signature item, object, idea to present on screen that makes what we are seeing visually more interesting, right? So many writers are trying to write a screenplay like it's a novel, and that they want to keep everything in the main character's head, and they want to make everything just about abstract thoughts and feelings. But I am making the argument that all great film making, and therefore screenwriting, is about filmable objects. Things we can actually put a camera on that make it interesting, right? Dorothy's ruby slippers. Ruby slippers are not difficult to get or make or have in a film. But it's so much more about how creative are you and how well are you able to symbolize an idea through an object in a way that is interesting for the story, right? That is what we're trying to do. And so you have to think further than just your first thought about, okay, I'm going to have this character. Okay, great. You've built a character. Now, how can we attach objects to them? How can we attach story items, and how can those objects and items be meaningful, right? So, and an object also has natural or unconscious collective symbolism attached to that object. Okay, bear with me here because I'm about to get a bit deeper, and I want you to not get distracted. I want you to think about this ring on screen here and listen to what I'm saying. So the One Ring in The Lord of the Rings was built to bind all the other rings of power, right? One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to subdue them all, and in the darkness bind them, right? So the ring is a binder. It is a binder of the power of all of the other rings. It is also a symbol of Sauron's power. And so when we think about the symbolism of a ring, how is a ring symbolic outside of the confines of the Lord of the Rings films? Well, the idea of a ring being binding is very, very common, right? For example, with a wedding ring. Why do we exchange bands that people wear on their fingers when people get married? Well, it is to show a binding, right? Is to symbolize physically the binding of two people. Wedding rings are the physical symbol worn on the body of the couple that signifies their binding of their two souls together. And so rings have this natural symbolism, this sort of collective unconscious symbolism that exists outside of the confines of the Lord of the Rings story that then is used by the story in a particular way, right? So now we are using the ring as a binder, right? We're still taking that symbolism of binding that you might find in a marriage ceremony, and now we are making it about power, right? We're making it about how this one ring controls the power of the other kingdoms. It is a binder of power, and that all of these other kingdoms accepted this power by taking their rings. And so what we're trying to do, what I'm trying to say here is, how are you using just the language of symbolism that is innate to the human experience to then build interesting symbols for your story? That is a bit of a heady concept, but it's important to think about. Like, this is why I'm so fascinated by Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung and the idea of symbolism in dreams, which we had a discussion about in one of these earlier live lectures. And Joseph Campbell's work in the symbolism in storytelling, right? When he writes A Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell, and also Joseph Campbell's book Oriental Mythology, are getting into the deep symbolism that is innate within story, and also innate within dreams, and innate within just the human psyche, right? We are symbolic beings. We understand the language of symbolism. The reason when everybody's in the theater watching Avengers Endgame and this scene comes on where the hammer goes flying across the screen and Captain America grabs the hammer and the theater goes wild, why does that moment work? It works because of an important story symbol, Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, the rule attached to that important story symbol that only those who are worthy of heart can pick up the hammer. And now we synthesize a character with that important story symbol, and we create a big impactful moment when Thor grabs the hammer. When Captain America grabs the hammer. And so using the language of symbols, understanding the language of symbols that you exist in, allows you to then create moments of extreme emotional impact. Wow, SH, thank you for the $100, $99.99 super chat. Wow, I really appreciate that. He says, or she says, "Hey Tyler, I've been following you for the past 5 years. I've really appreciated your content. It has taught me everything I know about writing. Here's a little something as thanks." Thank you so much for sending me a super chat. I really appreciate it. And I hope this has been helpful so far. Now, continuing forth, I want to talk a little bit about setups and payoffs. And again, this stuff is super, super simple, right? I want to keep everything, like stories, they need to be clear and simple in your mind so that you can actually make a film out of them. One of the reasons I love screenwriting specifically more than any other story medium is because it's so visual, and you have to work with a level of clarity in the writing and in the actual filming and creation, production of the film to achieve what you want to do. That is, it takes a lot of clarity. So thinking about setups and payoffs, I want to start with the Sword of Isildur, which is from The Lord of the Rings, and it is a important story object. And so there's a couple clips I want to watch here. You guys should be able to hear this okay. So bear with me. Let's watch let's watch this clip at least to start. All right, we'll get through our ad here. Okay, great. And here we go.
You are no elf?
The men of the South are welcome here.
Who are you?
I am friend to Gandalf the Grey.
We are here on common purpose. Friend? Shards of Narsil. Blade that cut the ring. Sauron's hand. Still sharp.
Okay, so this is the Shards of Narsil, the blade that cut the ring from Sauron's hand. Okay, so this is what happens in the beginning of The Lord of the Rings, right? This is Isildur's sword, the king of Gondor. This is his sword right here. So in this scene, we establish where it is. This is in the first film, The Fellowship of the Ring, and that the sword is broken.
Still sharp. No more than a broken hand.
Okay, so this establishes Narsil, the Sword of Isildur. Then, in Return of the King, which is the third film, they reforge the sword. And we've got our Chick-fil-A out again.
Everything you want.
Yeah.
From the ashes a fire shall be woken. A light from the shadow shall spring. Renewed shall be blade that was broken. The crownless again shall be king. Reforge the sword. Ada.
So then, in this scene in Return of the King, not to give you the whole plot, but this is the guy I'm not going to give you the whole plot, but the idea is that we see the sword again, and then finally it is returned. The sword is given to Aragorn because he is the heir of Gondor, and the idea is that with this sword he can become king again. It's very simple. So the sword is connected to Aragorn's reclaiming of his birthright, which is becoming king of Gondor. That is what the sword symbolizes. So the sword, the broken sword, symbolizes the broken lineage of Isildur. And then throughout the Lord of the Rings films, Gondor is kingless, right? There's a steward in Gondor. Gondor is kingless. This sword being reforged and given to Isildur's heir, which is Aragorn, this character here, the symbolic meaning is very clear. Now he must take up the throne once again. He must become king. That is what is going on, and that is what we see in this scene.
I take my leave.
My Lord Elrond, I come on behalf of one whom I love. Arwen is dying. She will not long survive the evil that now spreads from Mordor. The light of the even star is failing.
By the way, there's another one. The light of the even star. So Arwen is this guy's daughter, and this guy's, Aragorn's, love interest. So this is her symbol. So he is wearing a symbol of Arwen, which is the woman that we saw saying, reforge the sword in that previous scene that I showed you. So again, here's another one, right? This is a literal symbol of Arwen. When we see the even star, we are also thinking of Arwen. You see how that works? So now you are connecting objects in the story to important characters to then symbolize those characters in the scene when they're not actually physically there.
As Sauron's power grows, her strength wanes. Arwen's life is now tied to the fate of the ring. The shadow is upon us, Aragorn. The end has come.
You will not be our end, but his.
You ride to war, but not to victory. Sauron's armies march on Minas Tirith.
Okay, blah, blah, blah.
Murderers.
Show him the sword.
Traitors. You would call upon them to fight. They believe in nothing. They answer to no one.
They will answer to the King of Gondor. Andúril, a flame of the west, forged from the shards of Narsil.
So I hope you noticed that he says, they will answer to the King of Gondor. And then we see the sword, right? Because the sword is the physical symbol of the lineage of Isildur. So in this scene, as Aragorn is taking the sword, it is symbolic of the abstract idea of the return of Isildur's lineage to the throne of Gondor. even though this is two characters standing in a tent, one is handing the other a sword, it is the symbolic meaning of the moment that is attaching all the emotional weight to it. And the more that you as the writer are able to see the language of symbolism, and the more you can create emotionally strong moments that don't require you to have 500 extras and a whole big CGI team. You can build an emotional moment around two characters standing in a room, one handing another an object, but you have to be able to build the symbol. You have to be able to understand the meaning behind that story symbol. And a sword is a super, ancient symbol, right? And so it has a lot of this, it has that weight of a line. It has there's just a lot of immediate symbolism attached to the idea of a sword, and so then that's why it becomes a good story symbol for this point, because the story is both adding its own symbolism to it, right? This sword symbolizes Isildur's heir, Aragorn, returning to the throne, but also it is using just the symbol of a sword in the collective unconscious, right? What does a sword mean in the collective unconscious, right? It already is associated with ideas like, fighting, with ideas like taking up arms, with ideas like kings, knights, all of this. And so that's kind of what you're trying to do, right? You're not just inventing story symbols out of complete thin air. You are essentially using natural symbols that already exist in the collective unconscious to bring an idea forward. Let's see this again. So let's go over to Shawshank Redemption. Okay.
Could use a nice welcome back when he gets out of the infirmary. I'm thinking Andy could use a nice welcome back when he gets out of the infirmary.
Sounds good to us. I figure we owe him that much for the beer.
Man likes to play chess. Let's get him some rocks.
Shit.
Oh, horse shit. Petrified.
Jesus. Oh, damn.
Despite a few hitches, the boys came through in fine style. And by the week Andy was due back, we had enough rock saved up to keep him busy till rapture. Also got a big shipment in that week. Cigarettes, chewing gum, sipping whiskey, playing cards with naked ladies on them, you name it. And of course, the most important item. Rita Hayworth herself.
And of course, the most important item, Rita Hayworth herself. That's the poster. Then, later on, we get this iconic scene from the movie.
Man missing on Tier 2, cell 245. Dufresne! Get your ass out here, boy. You're holding up the show. Don't make me come down there, I'll thump your skull for you. Damn it, Dufresne, you're putting me behind. I got a schedule to keep. You better be sick or dead in there, I shit you not. You hear me?
Oh, my holy God.
I want every man on this cell block questioned. Start with that friend of his.
Who?
Him.
Open 237.
What do you mean he just wasn't here? Don't say that to me, Hay. Don't say that to me again.
But, sir, he wasn't.
I can see that, Hay. Think I'm blind? Is that what you're saying? Am I blind, Hay?
No, sir.
What about you? You blind? Tell me what this is.
Last night's count.
Mm-hmm. You see Dufresne's name there? I sure do. See, right there. Dufresne. He was in his cell at lights out. Stands to reason he'd still be here in the morning. I want him found. Not tomorrow, not after breakfast, now.
Yes, sir.
Let's go. Move your butts. Move it!
Stand.
Well?
Well, what?
I see you two all the time. You're thick as thieves, you are. He must have said something.
Also, Warden. Not a word.
Lord, it's a miracle! Man up and vanished like a fart in the wind. Nothing left but some damn rocks on the windowsill. And that cupcake on the wall. Let's ask her. Maybe she knows. What say you there, Fuzzy Britches? Feel like talking? Ah, guess not. Why should she be any different? This is a conspiracy. That's what this is. One big damn conspiracy! And everyone's in on it! Including her.
Okay. So weird, it's not the exact same poster. I have to go watch the movie back again and see about that. But the idea is that they set up him getting the poster, and then the poster is paid off here, right? It is used for his escape, therefore becoming an important story object that it shows us not only, it's not just an object, it also is incorporated into the movement of the plot, right? It is a way in which he covers his own escape. Now, this is also a version of expressing important information, right? So we show he escaped through the tunnel through the use of the poster. Now, this is an idea you see a lot, which is this idea of exposition through on-screen demonstration, right? Characters are standing in a room explaining something to us. And that thing always is very, very, very simple, because it has to be, because it must be simple for us to understand it for the movement of the film. Now, I'm going to give you some examples of what I'm talking about, this idea of exposition through on-screen demonstration, right? This is usually where the characters are explaining the plan in some way. Now, I don't have a full scene of this Oppenheimer moment. For those of you who have seen the movie, this should be clear to you, and for those who have not, less so. But I think it will still be okay. And you can buy your overpriced Cartier watch if you also desire. Okay, here we are. Okay. So this right here is what I want to talk about. The jars full of marbles in Oppenheimer. Okay. So in Oppenheimer, it's this supposedly big, complex movie with all this crazy quantum physics theory and bomb making and all this stuff, right? And that is what you might say the movie is saying in, like, you know, your reviews, talking about how, oh, it's such an intelligent film because it's dealing with quantum mechanics and all of this, and to doing these crazy experiments. But at the end of the day, to actually make it clear for the audience watching the movie as to what's going on, they have a scene where they literally bring out this fishbowl here and this wine glass, or this glass here, and they say, we need enough uranium and plutonium to fill these up. And we're only making, and they drop in single marbles in, we're only making this much plutonium so far, right? So this is very important. And if you've seen the film, you better be tracking with me, because the film has all this stuff about, okay, we're doing quantum mechanics and we're doing bomb making experiments and all this stuff, and it's supposed to act like it's super complex, and it might sound that way, but when we actually get to rubber hits the road, what does the audience need to understand so that they are tracking with what is happening on screen? They get so simple to where they say, here's two bowls, a big bowl and a glass. We need to make enough radioactive material to fill these two, and we're going to show that by putting the marbles in. And we show our work is done. How? By showing full marbles, right? Full thing of marbles here, full thing of marbles here. It's literally that simple. It is first grader simple. Okay? It is first grader simple. This is super important because you have all these idiots walking around talking about how, oh, it's so filmmaking. Oh, wow. Great filmmaking is so complex. It's like, what is going on is so complex. No, it is not. It has to be extremely simple for any of it to make sense, right? We've got all these scenes surrounding the plot where characters are discussing different things, what we're going to do, scene choices here, character dynamics here, but we have to nail down what's actually going on in a super simple way, which is we need to make enough uranium or whatever to fill up our bowls, right? So that we are literally creating a scene where we're diagramming that forth for the audience. Which is why most of the time when I am reading a screenplay from a writer and it's the first time, right, I'm reading their first draft, or even if it's draft 5, but they just have written it themselves and they haven't really got any feedback on it, there's all this complicated stuff that just needs to be reduced into something so simple like a character putting a bowl and a glass on the table and saying, we need to make enough uranium until this stuff is full. Boom. It's just so simple. And now you're taking all these abstract, big idea, heady concepts like quantum physics and bomb making and uranium development all the way into something that is so simple that it is literally a glass on a table and we're filling marbles. We're putting marbles in it, right? If you can't simplify to that level of clarity, you're never going to make a plot that is working. And so people try to come into writing and they want to make everything complex. You add complexity through character dynamics on a plot that is simple and makes sense. Add complexity through more characters with more unique perspectives and points of view, not through creating a plot that is super complicated. Simple plot, complex characters. Not simple characters, complex plot, which is what most people try to do. They try to make an entire screenplay that only has 5 freaking characters in it, but it's the weirdest, most convoluted, useless plot of all time. It's like, why don't you do the exact opposite? Give me a fleshed out character web of 16 interesting characters, all organized through their physical hierarchy and their emotional relationships and their points of view, and then place them in a simple plot, right? A simple actual structural movement that makes sense, so that we can therefore have complexity in the characters and their development and their viewpoints and their arguments and dialogue, and we don't have a plot that is so messy that the audience can't actually emotionally get involved, because they're going to be emotionally involved in the characters and their journeys. They're not emotionally involved in a super overly complex plot. And so a lot of times when people are trying to make something that's super complex on the plot side, they end up with trying to make like a timey-wimey Nolan knockoff that has super flat characters, whereas they need to be doing the opposite. If you're going to have, like, your plot can be more quote-unquote flat as a starting point, and it's your characters and their perspectives and their interesting dynamics that really add the layers of depth. All right, let's go to another explaining the plan sort of scene here from Top Gun Maverick.
The uranium enrichment plant that is your target will be operational earlier than expected. Raw uranium will be delivered to the plant in 10 days' time. As a result, your mission has been moved up 1 week in order to avoid contaminating the target valley with radiation.
Sir, no one here has successfully flown a low-level course.
Nevertheless, you've been ordered to move on. Captain.
We have 1 week left to focus on Phase 2. It's the most difficult stage of the mission. It's a pop-up strike with a steep dive requiring nothing less than 2 consecutive miracles. 2 pairs of F-18s will fly in a welded wing formation. Teamwork. Precise coordination of these aircraft is essential to both the mission's success and your survival. As you know, the plant rests between 2 mountains. On final approach, you'll invert directly into a steep dive. This allows you to maintain the lowest possible altitude and the only possible attack angle. Your target is an impact point less than 3 meters wide. The 2-seat aircraft will paint the target with a laser bullseye. The first pair will breach the reactor by dropping a laser-guided bomb on an exposed ventilation hatch. This will create an opening for the second pair. That's miracle number 1. The second team will deliver the kill shot and destroy the target. That's miracle number 2. If either team misses the target,
That's a miss!
the mission is a failure.
Damn it!
Egress is a steep, high-G climb out to avoid hitting this mountain.
A steep climb at that speed, you're pulling at least 8 Gs.
9, minimum.
The stress limit of the F-18's airframe is 7.5.
That's the accepted limit.
Okay, so you get the idea, right? Now, we are going to watch this again. I want you to focus and just put your full attention on how many ways they are making it abundantly clear that 2 planes are going to go into this valley, shoot at the thing, and then go out the other side, right? Notice how many times they reinforce the idea, how many different ways they show you. They show you the digital version, right? The plane's going over, then they show you the real version of the planes doing it in real life. They're doing this constant cutting around to show you this simple idea so that you have full clarity about what's going on, right? And it's very simple what's happening. 2 planes are going in, they're going to shoot at the thing, they're going to go out the other side. It's super simple, and this is going to be a big, long sequence in the film, okay? And it is. And it only works because the audience is on board and understands what's going on, and because what they are doing is simple and clear. And so now This is the point of this. If you are simple and clear in the plot and in the objective of what is happening right now, it is way easier for the audience to become emotionally invested in what the characters are doing. This is why I'm saying simple plot, complex characters. We are more emotionally involved when we can have full clarity, moment by moment, on what's happening in the external plot. If we ever have to stop and explain all this stuff in the middle of what's going on, then we're getting bored, right? Because now plot information is covering the emotion of the story. And so this way, what they are doing here is they are priming the audience to say, okay, this is the mission, here's all the plot stuff, so that when we actually do the mission, you can be focused on the characters and their dynamics and their relationships rather than trying to figure out what's actually going on from the plot standpoint. So let's watch this again. Be very clear. See how clearly and how much they repeat themselves, right? Think about the film language of the scene. Like even thinking about the editing that's happening here, right? There is a language that they are using, a language of clarity to express to you a simple idea. Planes fly in, gonna go out the other side. Here's an example of what it looks like if they fail. Here's an example of what it looks like if they succeed, so that you as the audience member have full clarity on what is going on.
We have 1 week left to focus on Phase 2. It's the most difficult stage of the mission. It's a pop-up strike with a steep dive requiring nothing less than 2 consecutive miracles. 2 pairs of F-18s will fly in a welded wing formation. Teamwork. Precise coordination of these aircraft is essential to both the mission's success and your survival. As you know, the plant rests between 2 mountains. On final approach, you'll invert directly into a steep dive. This allows you to maintain the lowest possible altitude and the only possible attack angle. Your target is an impact point less than 3 meters wide. The 2-seat aircraft will paint the target with a laser bullseye. The first...
Man, you guys see this? This is like really, really professional level, Hollywood level expressing of information, right? So it's like we've got this back and forth between the digital understanding, the actual, how they do this kind of digital box in transition into the real valley and then the zoom out. Like it's so spatially and visually clear, and that is why I love screenwriting. That is what you want to be working towards. Fly
the
over.
Only possible attack angle. Your target is an impact point less than 3 meters wide.
Do you see this scene transition here? Like,
your target is an impact point less than 3 meters wide.
Also, this white box is our story item or our scene object, right? This is what everything is about, right? This strange object.
Impact point less than 3 meters wide. The 2-seat aircraft will paint the target with a laser bullseye. The first pair will breach the reactor by dropping a laser-guided bomb on an exposed ventilation hatch. This will create an opening for the second pair. That's miracle number 1. The second team will deliver the kill shot and destroy the target. That's miracle number 2. If either...
Right, and the way that he's putting up 1 and 2, right? They're just so good. It's just such high professional film language here. You know, and like people forget about all of this. They're like, oh, I just need to, write my script and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, you have to be very, very clear about the communication of information to the audience. And the flow of that, like the way that this is edited together, it's just very well done in that sense of explaining the mission. And, who better than Tom Cruise to know how to explain the mission? He's definitely made a few of these kinds of movies.
This will create an opening for the second pair. That's miracle number 1. The second team will deliver the kill shot and destroy the target. That's miracle number 2. If either team misses the target,
That's a miss!
the mission is a failure.
Damn it!
Egress is a steep, high-G climb out to avoid hitting this mountain.
A steep climb at that speed, you're pulling at least 8 Gs.
9, minimum.
The stress limit of the F-18's airframe is 7.5.
That's the accepted limit. To survive this mission, you'll pull beyond that, even if it means bending your airframe. You'll be pulling so hard you'll weigh close to 2,000 pounds. Your skull crushing your spine. Your lungs imploding like an elephant sitting on your chest. Fighting with everything you have just to keep from blacking out. And this is where you'll be at your most vulnerable.
So you get the idea, right? Fogarty's asking me, where did I learn this? I learned this by doing a lot of one-on-one coaching. I work with a lot of screenwriters regularly. I also write my own stuff. I also make YouTube videos about that. Like, everything that I do feeds my knowledge base. Okay, I didn't get some degree from some school that taught me everything I needed to know. It's like, no, I do this a lot. I work with writers. I make screenwriting education content. I study screenplay. I study film language. I study story language. Like, who is my Tyler Mowery? I mean, I don't have one person. It's like, really what has been so helpful is working with so many writers. Like, I have been able to look at so many incorrect, poorly written screenplays and then make them better. And that really just helps me learn so much, because I get so many different ideas and types of stories that, you know, a writer wants to work. And so it becomes a ton of fun. Let's do one more. So this is where they're talking about Plan A and Plan B about in Interstellar. So in this case, the entire facility becomes the object that they are using to discuss an idea.
So if we find a home, then what?
That's the long shot. There's a plan A and a plan B. Did you notice anything strange about the launch chamber?
Well, this entire facility is a centrifuge. Some kind of vehicle. A space station?
Both. Plan A.
How do you get it off the ground?
The first gravitational anomalies changed everything.
So notice, this is really interesting. He's explaining that the facility is a centrifuge. Notice that this door here becomes the focal point. Okay? So as we tilt, notice how this is also center frame. See this? Center frame. Because our eye is supposed to be here. We're supposed to see this like a 2001 Space Odyssey centrifuge going this way, using the door as our key eye point, our attention point to understand this.
Well, this entire facility is a centrifuge. Some kind of vehicle.
See that? See how that is so clear? You don't even think about it. It's just in your brain. It's just incepted with it. You don't even try to look at the door. The door is just there. But if you're the writer, this is stuff you have to think about. This is stuff you must understand.
Well, this entire facility is a centrifuge. Some kind of vehicle. A space station?
Both. Plan A.
How do you get it off the ground?
The first gravitational anomalies changed everything. Suddenly we knew that harnessing gravity was real. So I started working on the theory, and we started building this station.
But you haven't solved it yet.
That's why there's Plan B. The problem is gravity. How to get a viable amount of human life off the planet. This is one way. Plan B, population bomb. Over 5,000 fertilized eggs.
So again, they are using the location they are standing in as their expositional tool. 5,000 fertilized eggs in this room. So then as the writer, you have to think about this room, right? What's it going to be like? How are we expressing this information to the audience? And then she's going to grab one, which then becomes the key scene object in the moment.
Weighing in at just under 900 kilos.
Well, how would you raise them?
With equipment on board, we incubate the first 10. After that, with surrogacy, the growth becomes exponential. Within 30 years, we could have a colony of hundreds. The real difficulty with colonization is genetic diversity. This takes care of that.
Yeah, what about the people here? You give up on them? My kids?
So it's interesting that we don't even have to look at these vials. We don't get any closer than this. She just pulls it out of the wall, taps it with her fingers a little bit, but we understand what's going on, right? This is visual plot information, visual story using a object as a story symbol, right? This object now symbolizes Plan B. This object symbolizes creating a new colony on another planet through fertilized eggs, right? That's what is getting symbolized in this moment here. And so having that visual, thinking about your story in the sense of what are the important, unique story objects in my scenes, right? This is a unique story object. This object represents the embryos of human beings that they would use to create a new colony on another planet in the world of Interstellar, right? So this whole thing, what they probably did was just grab some sort of, scientific dealio and just used it instead, right? But now it is becoming a story symbol. It is specific to this sci-fi world now. So you can think about your story in the same way. What are the important story objects? What objects in your story world are unique to that story world?
That's
also, this is not really about story symbols, but this is a small note. If you are paying attention, you might think, oh yeah, there's three characters in this scene, right? These three.
Well, how would you raise them?
What you don't think about is the other three characters in this scene that make the world feel alive, but you don't really think about.
Board, we incubate the first 10. After that,
so right, we've got this guy standing right here. We've got these two people in the back room through this glass.
see the growth becomes exponential.
And so this guy here, this guy here, this guy here, they now create this feeling of a larger world. If these three people were not here just doing something, the whole scene would feel more flat. It would feel much more small, and it would feel more like a short film. Why? Because in a short film, you would not think to get these three extras to say nothing and place them into the visual shot of your scene. You would just have your three main characters, right? You would just have these three people, and you wouldn't think about the other ones. And that's why your scene feels not like a Hollywood scene, because they do this little detail stuff, right? We've got three extras in here that say nothing, plus a very unique story object. And that makes the scene feel so much more alive visually. But when you just take a couple of people and you don't have any extras, and you don't have some sort of interesting story object that is in the center of the scene, it's just characters standing around talking about whatever, then you wonder why it feels like a short film.
This takes care of that.
Yeah, what about the people here?
And then notice, right, somebody walks behind, right? All of these decisions had to be made by someone on set, right? They actually had somebody, and they gave somebody a cue, and they put that person right behind here, and then they said, walk behind, boom, right? Now they walk behind right at this moment, right as they're shooting. All of these little details have to be thought out if you're going to create something that really feels fully fleshed out. And a lot of writers, they don't do that, because all they do is they look at stories as an audience member. Like, oh yeah, my three main characters in the scene. That's the only people I need to write about. And they don't see the full vision of what's happening. They don't see all these little Hollywood tricks, right? This object is such an important element in making you believe this is real, because none of this is real, right? This woman is not actually, you know, a lab certified human being, right? These people are not actually, you know, scientists. This guy is not, like, none of this is real. You are seeing a fake image. Why do you then believe it? Because Hollywood is great at wizardry. They are great at making you believe what you are looking at. And it's through these subtle things, like having a key story object, having extras that say nothing, right? All
Real
this stuff.
difficulty with colonization.
Having somebody walk by in the background.
Takes care of that.
Also, it's fun that they have at first, you see that, first when we cut back to this, nobody walks here. Nobody walking. And then the second time we come back, now somebody walking, right? Little things, right? It's just so beautiful little touches that this is the kind of stuff that Hollywood just crushes at. And there was like, why do I know this? Why can I see some of this stuff? Well, it's because I work with writers that are outside of Hollywood, right? I see how they are not seeing or not feeling all the minor details and bringing those forward. That's why I'm able to see. So, did I have anything else to show here? No. Yeah, that is essentially what I've got for you today. I hope that was clear. What I want you to do today, what I want you to be thinking about is, what are the important story objects in your story? How can you create? How would you write some of that into the scene, though, or does the director just decide that? Yeah, that's a good question. It can depend, Ben, on like, do you write every little movement of extras around? No, but you would write in that there are other people in the scene, right? You might say something small like scientists work around while they speak. Boom. Now it's one line. Then you as let's say you're making a short. Now you as the producer and director of the short would then be saying, okay, how do I actually cue in these extras and what would that look like? That kind of thing. I don't think you would maybe you would not write the extra walking past the door, but if you were filming it, it's something that you would need to think about. Like, so many scenes that you love have like double the characters you think they do, because you're only thinking of the major characters. You're not thinking of the extras, and the extras really help to flesh out a world. Does that happen organically on set? Absolutely not. No, it does not happen organically. It is something that is discussed in pre-production, set up with extras, and then done. Now, maybe it happens on set in the sense of you already have your extras there and now you just experiment on where they're going to be blocked in the room. That can happen, but you know that you're going to need extras to fill a space no matter what. Yes, Ben, I am doing these at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesdays. And this recording will be up on the channel under the live tab, along with the other story lectures that I have done over the last few weeks. So feel free to check those out. And what I want you to take away from this today is simply, what are the important story objects in your story? How are they unique to your story? And how can we see them used multiple times, right? Just like this, where we need the setup of Mjolnir's hammer connected to Thor to ever get this moment in the end, when we can then pay that off with the understanding that only those who are worthy can lift the hammer. Now we pay that off with Captain America, and we show this development of character through an important story symbol. All right. I hope that has been helpful to you. Thank you guys for hopping in, attending the live lecture today. and I will be here same time next week, 4 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesday. Not quite sure what the next one will be. It will depend on where I am in my research on my new course. But I've been thinking a lot about plot symbols, story symbols, and this kind of thing. Because symbols are such an important language. This is also how, I don't want to get into all this today, but symbols are also connected to dreams, right? Carl Jung talks about dream symbolism a lot. And there is a symbols are the language that we use to communicate outside of words, right? Symbols are visual language. And so when you are filmmaking, when you are screenwriting, when you are writing for the screen, how then do you create visual symbols in the writing that are clear for the audience? That is the skill. Ben says, set it on my calendar. Going to be here every week. Excellent, Ben. I look forward to it. Thank you all for hopping in. Hey, Joshua, good to see you as well. I would like a full class on Jung. Thanks, Tyler Challenger. Full class on Jung. Yeah, that's interesting. That is interesting. I did one of my earlier story writing lectures. I think it's within the last 4 that I've done. I was talking about Jung a lot and quoting from one of his books. Christian asks, working on a first draft, how aware of story objects should I be on the first draft? I mean, I think fairly aware. Like, absolutely. What objects are being used in your scenes and which of them are going to be repeated? I would literally keep it that simple. Find ways to repeat story objects, right? How do we see something again? We don't just see it once, because you attach more and more meaning to something when we see it more and more times. If we just see an object one time, it's not that meaningful. But if we see it over and over again, and its use morphs and changes and grows, and its relationships to characters morph and change and grow, then it can be a very important scene and story object. All right, guys. Thanks so much. I hope this has been helpful to you. And again, just so you know, you guys can always, I'm going to put this up on the screen here so it's super clear. All right. You can always come to this live tab right here on my channel. I know, home, videos, and then if you click the live tab, you can see the lives. So, yeah, I can't remember which, but yeah, these are all the Q&A live streams. These are all pretty good, I believe. We'll talk about good stuff. Anyways, you guys can check those out. The recording will be here under the live tab. Thank you guys for hopping in, and I will see you next time.